العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. First and foremost, Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much for everyone who is attending. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of us with beneficial knowledge, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow this gathering to be beneficial, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a means of reward for us in the hereafter. To begin, I'd like to thank the people that, the brothers and sisters, in particular Brother Hashmi's family, who provided us with spectacular food and the dinner. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them barakah. And again, just as a reminder that we do have a couple of slots that are open if anyone is interested in sponsoring dinner for the upcoming family nights. The second announcement that I'd like to make before we move on is, as we know, as many of you know, that we send out emails for our programs, and inshallah for the upcoming family nights we would really appreciate if you can RSVP immediately, so that we can have a good approximation of exactly how many people are coming. Because the people that are providing, the dinner, they're already going through a lot of trouble, and the last thing they want is bringing food and then not having enough, simply because people don't RSVP. So if you know you're going to attend, or even if you think you're going to slightly attend, then please RSVP, because it's better to have more food and suffice for everyone rather than having a deficiency in food. So those are just the two important announcements. So we can begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As all of us are aware that tonight we are here for a very interesting topic, which is regarding the Jinn. How many, with a show of hands, who thinks they know what a Jinn is? Okay. Alright, with a show of hands, who's ever encountered a Jinn? Some may be thinking, when I look in the mirror, I think I look like a Jinn, but okay, no. Alright, here's the thing. Inshallah, tonight, our objective, my personal objective, is that after we finish this program, inshallah, if some of us here are scared of jinns on the level of 10, then inshallah after this program I hope that everyone's level of fear decreases, right? Here's the thing, the purpose of this program tonight is not so I can sit here and tell you scary stories, right? That's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is to show you, to inshallah share with you the reality of what jinn are. And my objective is that after this program finishes, inshallah, we can all walk out with a better understanding and just diminish this fear of jinn. Because, we grew up and, some stories we hear are true, but some are completely false. Many of them are completely false. And here's one of the issues in our community, in our Muslim community. Alhamdulillah, I had a chance to take a very small seminar on mental health last year. And after taking that class, I realized how underestimated mental health or mental illnesses are really underestimated. That so many people suffer from some sort of mental illness, yet it's completely ignored. In many cultures, even within our cultures back home, we term them as they're created some sort of jinn possession or something like that. In reality, many of these incidences are just mental illnesses. Not too long ago, someone called me and they said, there's jinns bothering them. And then I asked them, can you describe it to me? And then they're like, yeah, and we're talking. And then sometimes on the phone, especially if you have like T-Mobile and it's not that good, you hear a lot of static. And then this person's like, look, the jinn's bothering us again. I'm like, that's static, that's bad T-Mobile service. They're like, no, it's jinn, they're bothering us. So, sometimes, many other times, people have these mental issues, and our culture, we just label them as, they're possessed by jinn, right? In reality, they need help, they need assistance. So that's our purpose tonight, to understand, the reality of jinn, number one, and number two, to relieve ourselves of this anxiety or this fear of jinns. In fact, we had a couple of youngsters here once during Ramadan who wanted to stay over, and they were so scared. These guys are in like college, they're like 23. He's like, Imam Sami, what if there's noises we hear? What should we do? Do we have to be worried about anything? So it's normal if we don't know the reality. But the reality of it is that a jinn is like any other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As long as you don't bother it, it won't bother you. As long as you stay away from it, it won't harm you. It's like a scorpion or a snake we see, It's not everywhere. We don't have to be petrified of it. We don't have to be scared of it if it's not within us, around us. But nevertheless, inshallah, we'll begin, and inshallah, hopefully, we can fulfill our objectives. So firstly, jinn. What exactly is a jinn? Now in Arabic, the word jinn is derived from a word which means hidden, concealed. So any word which comes from that root word has a meaning of being hidden. So Jannah comes from the same root. Jannah means paradise, a garden, but it also has the meaning of being hidden. Jannah. Likewise, Jinnah means insanity. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually uses this word regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that وَمَا بِهِ جِنَّةٌ, something like that, that he is not insane. And again, Jinnah, it has this meaning that the intellect is hidden. And then mijan in Arabic, which means a shield, meaning you're hiding yourself. So any word which comes from that root has a connotation of being hidden. So jinn likewise means something which is hidden from our sight, hidden from our spectrum of vision. Now the jinn itself, it is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is made from smokeless fire. Right? Understand this? Smokeless fire. Very interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in two places, وَخَلَقَ الْجَنَّ مِن مَارِجٍ مِّن نَارٍ. This is in Surah Al-Rahman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we created the jinn from marij min nar. Marij means mixing. And again in Surah Al-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ, that the two seas they mix, and yet they do not cross each other's paths, right? So marij means mixed. In other words, what it means is that it's different types of fire. If you've studied, I think it's biology or geology, I can't remember. But you have different types of fire. You have fires that on different levels of heat, and based on that, their colors are different. You have fires that are really bright. You have fires that are somewhat darker, and based on their temperature and their heat, they have different colors. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the jinn is made up of different types of fire. And in fact, in the tafsir it says, وَهُوَ طَرَفُ لَهْبِهَا. It is from the flame, it's a huge fire, and from the fringes of the fire. And then in other places, the Quran says, وَالْجَانَّ خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ مِنْ نَارِ السَّمُومِ. There's actually two lessons we can learn from this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and the jinn, we have created it before the creation of human beings from an-nar as-samum. An-nar as-samum means very scorching, hot fire. In another tafsir, it says that Ibn Abbas radhiyallahu anhu, he says that an-nar as-samum is the light from a lightning bolt. In other words, what we know from the Quran, what we know from the Hadith, is that the jinn are created from fire which does not have any smoke, and fire which is not visible to us. Some scholars have said that, if you want to translate it to modern day science, it's like energy. You have radioactive waves from your phones, from your microwaves. We have waves of energy crisscrossing us, and we can't see them. They're not visible to our eyes. And they've mentioned that the jinn are bodies of energy. So the question that, have you ever seen a jinn? You can't see a jinn in its actual form. That's not possible. And we'll learn, can you even meet a jinn? Can you encounter a jinn? But to see a jinn in its actual form is not possible. It's like asking, can you see energy in its original form? You can't see energy in its original form. And that's why, you have these devices that can actually detect, fields of energy. These Ghostbuster guys, what they do is they walk around and they look for clumps of energy, and when they find fields of energy, they believe this is where a jinn is. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they take pictures and then they see like light and whatnot, but that's completely different. That's another topic. But nevertheless, this is what jinns are created from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us from clay, whereas jinn have been created from fire, which is void of smoke, smokeless fire. Another thing before we actually begin, or before we move on, is that many of the things we'll learn about the jinn we'll be learning from shaitan, we'll be learning from Iblis. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that kana min al-jinn, that Iblis, shaitan, is a jinn. In some religions, they believe that Iblis, shaitan, Satan, was an angel who disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's termed the fallen angel. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear that Iblis, shaitan, he's a jinn. He's not an angel. He was a jinn, but he was such a righteous, pious jinn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had elevated his level and ranked to the extent that he was in the company of the angels. And then because of his arrogance and his pride, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely humiliated him. So many of the things that we'll be learning about jinn are directly from incidents of shaitan, Iblis himself. So now getting on to the origin and the history, that when were jinn created, what's their history, a little bit about them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً قَالُوا أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَن يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the angels that I will be creating on the earth a khalifa, a representative, meaning someone that will represent and enact the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world, meaning the human beings, the angels, they didn't protest, but they questioned, they asked that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why will you create a species which has this free will? They can do whatever they want. And the reason they're asking this question is because the jinn was created before us. And like how we have free will, we can make our own decision, the jinn also has the ability to make their own decisions. They're not like angels. Angels, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands them to do, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them to do, they listen and they obey. The thought of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not even cross their mind. Whereas for us and jinn, we have the ability to make the right decision or the wrong decision. So since the jinn were created before us, and in the ayah we read before, that وَالْجَانَّ خَلَقَنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ, that we created the jinn before mankind. That's why the angels saw this, that the jinn were created with free will. And instead of doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to do, instead of looking after others, instead of establishing peace, instead of establishing a just society, instead what they did was يَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء, they killed one another, وَيُفْسِدُ فِيهَا, and they spread corruption. That's what they did. And so then they asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're creating another species just like the jinn, and they're going to do the exact same thing. What's the point? And again, the angels are not protesting, they're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of curiosity. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, that I know what you do not know. But now getting into the history of jinn, we know that they were created before us. In fact, it says over here that the jinn, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them, it says over here, عن ابن عباس قال إن أول من سكن الأرض al-jinn, that the first inhabitants of the earth were jinn. So maybe, you know, there were dinosaurs with the jinns, I don't know, right? فَأَفْسَدُوا فِيهَا. So then, and then they spread corruption in the world. وَسَفَكُوا فِيهَا الدِّمَاء. And they, you know, killed one another, they spilled a lot of blood. وَقَتَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا. And they killed one another. And then Ibn Abbas, he says, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِمْ إِبْلِيسِ. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to them Iblis. فَقَتَلَهُمْ إِبْلِيسِ وَمَنْ مَعَهُ حَتَّى أَلْحَقَهُمْ بِجَزَائِرِ الْبُحُورِ وَأَطْرَافِ الْجِبَالِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually sent Iblis as someone to take care of all these crazy jinns, that the jinns were fighting with one another, they were having the civil war, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Iblis as someone to take care of the jinn, to guide the jinn. So فَقَتَلَهُمْ إِبْلِيسِ. So Iblis fought all these, you know, like rebel jinns and all their armies, to the extent that حَتَّى أَلْحَقَهُمْ بِجَزَائِرِ الْبُحُورِ, that he sent them away, he cast them away to different islands, وَأَطْرَافَ الْجِبَالِ, and he sent them away to, you know, the mountaintops. ثُمَّ خَلَقَ آدَمْ فَأَسْكَنَهُ إِيَّاهُ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man. So what we understand from this, this tafsir of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, we understand 2 points. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us all this space. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, the jinn were already away from us. Meaning the places we live, the places that we inhabit, are not generally where jinns live. You know, generally people do not live in, like, you know, islands where there's no one there. Generally people do not live on mountaintops. You have some, you know, indigenous people living in these areas, but majority of the people, they live in cities, they live in towns, they like living together. They like living in places where there's resources, where they can cultivate, where they can grow their crops and so on and so forth. Growing your crops in mountaintops is very difficult, so majority of the time humans don't live there. Likewise, jinn, majority of the time, they don't live where we live. Majority of the jinn, they live where humans don't live. They live in like mountaintops and isolated areas, you know, islands where people don't go to. That's where they live, right? And then over here says that عن عبد الله بن عمر قال كان الجن بنو الجان في الأرض قبل أن يخلق آدم بألف سنة. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the jinn 1,000 years before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings. فأفسدوا في الأرض وسفكوا الدماء فبعث الله جندا من الملائكة فضربوهم حتى ألحقوا بجزائر البحور. And then Allah and then they caused a lot of chaos and havoc in the world, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, you know, angels to take care of them, and then the angels, you know, spread them all over the world so that, you know, they don't fight with one another. And then there's some other details where Allah, it says خلق الله الملائكة يوم الأربعاء وخلق الجن يوم الخميس وخلق آدم يوم الجمعة. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created angels on Wednesday, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the jinn on Thursday, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man or Adam alayhi salam on the day of Jum'ah. فكفر قوم من الجن فكانت الملائكة تهبط إليهم في الأرض. And then there's a lot of detail, but nevertheless we understand that the jinn were created before us, and the jinn don't generally inhabit the places where we generally inhabit. So that's a little bit of jinn history. They're like us, you know, they had many civil wars and they fight, and I'm pretty sure they're fighting just like us, right? Similarities. How are we similar to them, and how are they similar to us? The first similarity is that they have the same purpose in life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not created jinn and man except لِيَعْبُدُونَ, except that we recognize and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, the same purpose that we have in life, the jinn have the same purpose. They have to recognize, find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their destination is the same as ours in the hereafter. They will go through the day of judgment. They'll have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after all of us pass away, the jinn die. The jinn have a longer lifespan than us, but eventually they die. And then after we die, we believe that all of us will be brought back to life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us regarding what we did in this world, and then either Allah will reward us or punish us for our actions. So they have the same purpose in life. Other places in the Quran mention that jinn prophets were sent to them as well. So like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent anbiya, prophets to us, messengers, likewise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to the jinn, anbiya and prophets. But those prophets and messengers, they were jinns. So they were actually jinn prophets and jinn messengers. Rasulullah ﷺ was the only prophet that was sent to both man and jinn. Because as we know, Rasulullah ﷺ is Khatamun Nabiyyin, that he is the final messenger and he is the universal messenger. The Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ actually, in fact, interacted with jinn. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَقَالُوا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا. That the jinn, actually a group of jinn, heard Rasulullah ﷺ reading the Quran, and they embraced Islam. So in the Quran is actually mentioned, and even in the seerah of Rasulullah ﷺ, that Rasulullah ﷺ interacted with the jinn. And as we mentioned, that typically, what we have to understand right from the beginning is that we live in a different realm, in a different world than the jinn do. The angels and the jinn, they live in the same world. Man lives in a different world. We live in a different realm, they live in another realm. So they live in different realms. But we know that Rasulullah ﷺ often interacted with angels, and because angels and jinn live in the same realm, so therefore he interacted with jinn on certain occasions. In fact, many times, one incident, Rasulullah ﷺ was praying, and then he caught hold of the jinn. So there are many instances when Rasulullah ﷺ interacted with jinn. As we'll find out that Sulaiman a.s., Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him such power that he had kingdomship, he had ownership over all the entire world, along with all the jinn as well. And we'll read about that inshallah as well. So this is a second very important point, that the angels and the jinn live in one world, and we live in a world completely different from theirs. And we'll learn a bit more about that. Jinns have families just like us. So in those ways they are very similar. What's their difference? The difference is, as we mentioned, they live in different worlds. And because they live in different worlds, it's not very easy for them to just pop into our world and come back out. It's very difficult to do that. So some of the features and the attributes that they have, we think of jinns, and we know that, sometimes we make up a lot of things, that they're very powerful and whatnot. So, what exactly features and attributes do they have? So first off, not all jinn are the same. Some jinn are very, very powerful. Some jinn are not. Some jinn have very long lifespans. Iblis, he has, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him, you could say, eternity. Whereas other jinn have shorter lifespans. So there's all different types of jinns, just like how there's all different types of human beings. You have some humans that are very strong. You have some humans that are not so strong. You have humans that live for a long time, some humans that don't. So likewise, you have all different types of jinn. Now here's the thing. Jinns have the ability to shapeshift, so to say. They can take on forms. And we learned this from the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ, as we'll read that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, it's a long hadith. It's narrated in Bukhari. It says that وَكَّلَنِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ بِحِفْظِ زَكَاةِ رَمَضَانِ فَأَتَانِي آتٍ فَجَعَلَ يَحْثُ مِنَ الطَّعَامِ. That, Abu Hurairah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once during Ramadan appointed Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu as a guard. That, here's all the sadaqah, and guard this sadaqah, guard this wealth. So then فَأَتَانِي آتٍ فَجَعَلَ يَحْثُ مِنَ الطَّعَامِ. So then this person came and he began taking the food that was sadaqah. And Abu Hurairah got very angry. فَأَخَذْتُهُ وَقُلْتُ وَاللَّهِ لَأَرْفَعَنَّكَ إِلَىٰ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. That he grabbed him and he said, I'm going to take it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't you have any shame? You're taking food that belong to the poor people. This is sadaqah. So then this person said, "Inni muhtaj wa alayya iyal wa li hajatun shadida," that I have a huge family, I'm in need of it, please forgive me, I'll never come back. So this happened 3 times. 3 times this person came back and he took food, and every time he took it, he began crying to Abu Hurairah, and Abu Hurairah let him go. And then the next morning Rasulullah ﷺ said that before Abu Hurairah even told him, he said, "How was your visitor last night?" So Abu Hurairah is like, "Oh, you already know." So he's like, "This man came and he started begging me, so I let him go. I felt really bad for him." So then Rasulullah ﷺ told him that, "Don't worry, tonight he'll come back again." So he came back, and then Abu Hurairah was waiting for him. He's saying that this time when he comes, I'm going to make sure I'm grabbing him, I'm not going to let him go. And the same thing happened. He began crying, he started saying, I'm in dire need of it, I have a huge family, please forgive me. And then Abu Hurairah felt really bad, he let him go. And then again the next night Rasulullah ﷺ said, he's going to come back again. And then this time Abu Hurairah made a promise. He's like, this time no matter what, I'm not going to let him go. So this time he was waiting for him, he caught him, he's like, this time I'm not going to let you go, never. Right? So what do we learn from this? So then Abu Hurairah catches this guy, and this person says that where is it? Okay, so then this person says that دعني وسوف أعلمك كلمات ينفعك الله بها, that if you let me go, then I promise to teach you something which will benefit you. So then Abu Hurairah said, okay, what is it? So then this person said, إذا أوتي إلى فراشك فقرأ آية الكرسي, that before you go to bed, then recite آية الكرسي. So we'll get to that. But then the next morning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he approached Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Hurairah, and then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to him, فقال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما فعل أسيرك البارحة, that what happened to your prisoner from last night? He said, قلت يا رسول الله زعم أنه يعلمني كلمات ينفعني الله بها فخليت السبيل, that he taught me something so I let him go. In stage of teaching me something, I let him go. قال وما هي, so then he asked, what did he teach you? So he said, when I go to bed, then I should recite Ayatul Kursi. So then here's the main part. So Rasulullah ﷺ said that أتعلم من تخاطب منذ ثلاث ليال يا أبا هريرة. So then he asked him that, are you aware of who you have been dealing with for the past 3 days? So then Abu Hurairah says, no, I don't. So he says, that was shaitan. Right? So we learn from this hadith that shaitan, jinn, they can actually take on the form of human beings. They can take on the form of any human except for the form of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what we also learn is that once a jinn, so you're thinking, oh my God, they can take on the form of some human being and that's dangerous. Here's the thing, once they take on the form of a human being, they are limited. Just like how Abu Hurairah was able to grab that person and hold him and overpower him, likewise, if a jinn takes on the form of a human being, you can overpower that person. So once they take on the form of something, they are limited to that power. They can't just magically vanish in front of your eyes. They can't break through a wall, right? They won't become Superman. No, nothing like that, right? So understand that. That should relieve you a lot of fear. That the jinn, if they want to interact with us, they have to become of solid form. They have to become like some animal or a human being. But once they do take on a form, a physical form, they're limited to that form. So just like how, if a jinn becomes a snake, this is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that if you see referring to the people of Medina, that if you see a snake in your house in Medina, then give it 3 warnings, because it may be that that snake is a jinn. Once the jinn takes on the form, a physical form, you can actually kill it. They have all the vulnerabilities, excuse me, they have all the weaknesses of that physical form. So you really don't have much to worry about, that this is not some invincible being that's going to completely, destroy you or, scare you or something like that. So that's hopefully that gives everyone some sort of comfort that they can't just break into your home out of thin air. That's not how it works. So they cannot harm us in their original form, only whispers to our souls, right? So because we said that the angels and the jinns, they live in one world, a world apart from ours, majority of the time, all of us, like I asked, have you guys ever had any interactions with jinns? We probably have, we just don't know it. The majority of the time, the interactions we have with jinns are in our sleep. Because when we sleep, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, that our souls go to a different realm. Our souls go, and the jinn and the angels are able to meet with us and communicate with us when we are sleeping. So when we have these bad dreams, they're from the shaitan, and we know there's shaitan and jinn, and there's not one shaitan, there's thousands of shaitans, right? All the followers of shaitan are all shaitan. So we have interactions with jinns, just not in the physical world. Their interaction with us is when we're sleeping. And understand that they can't harm you. They can scare you, they can frighten you, but they can't harm you when you're sleeping. Just like how if you're dreaming and someone kills you, you wake up and you're fine. You're not dead, right? Inshallah not. But so again, you don't have to worry that am I going to wake up and then is there going to be a jinn? That's your wife, right? That's not a jinn. Right? In your sleep, that's a different thing, right? Majority of our interactions with jinns will be while we are asleep, and likewise, good dreams are from good dreams. The angels are part of it, and bad dreams, the shaitans are involved. They can whisper to us. Here's the important part. In Surah An-Nas, we read, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ. We seek protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the whisperer, مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. So the jinn, they can actually communicate with us. And how do they communicate with us? They do it in a way they communicate with us through whispering. They give us evil thoughts like that. But otherwise, they really can't, bother us. So again, as we mentioned, the point of this is to relieve ourselves of this anxiety or this fear of jinn. So just by learning these small pieces of information, inshallah, a lot of our fear should be vanished. Another feature or attribute of the jinn is they can eavesdrop on angels. Jinns and angels are from the same realm. Jinns can fly and ascend beyond Earth's atmosphere. So if you go down the road, you'll see, this is very weird. You see these guys, these psychics and these palm readers, and you think, we live in the 21st century modern day world, and everybody's so advanced and modern and whatnot. But this guy over here, he has a Mercedes-Benz. How does he afford that? How many people, how many doctors, how many so-called intellectual people go visit that guy so that he can actually afford to buy an expensive car? You have, these psychics in Manhattan. They pay like $10,000 rent. Where do they get the money from? There's so much superstition people have. If you don't have, and here's the thing, Islam removes all that superstition. Islam gives us the answer to what happens and what doesn't. But when we're deprived of that knowledge, when we don't have Islam, even Muslims, we fall into so much superstition. So the way these psychics, what they do is, when you go to a psychic, they'll tell you some things that are true, some things that are false. So the way they receive their information is through the jinn. They have connections with jinn, and they receive information from the jinn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran. He says, إِلَّا مَنِ اسْتَرَقَ السَّمْعَ فَأَدْبَهُ شِهَابٌ مُبِينٌ. That there are some jinns who can actually travel beyond the atmosphere of the earth and listen on to the conversation of the angels. Imam Bukhari, he narrates that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives information to the angels of what's going to happen, and then the angels, they discuss it amongst one another beyond the earth. And as they're discussing it, some these jinn, they go to eavesdrop on one another. They go and try to listen and eavesdrop on the conversation of the angels. So they get bits and pieces of information. Why? Because they can't stay there for too long. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ مُبِينٌ, that we have that Allah, these comets and these shooting stars and stuff, they're actually, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that they are a source of protection for the earth's atmosphere from these jinn. That when these jinn go up to eavesdrop on the angels, then these shooting stars, they actually drive the jinn away. So when the jinn go up there, they're actually risking their lives, they're in danger. So they're not able to listen to everything. They hear bits and pieces, and then they go and tell other jinn. And then, have you guys ever played that game called telephone? Like, you tell one person one message, and then by the time it reaches the 20th person, it's like complete different message, right? That's how it begins. One jinn tells him one thing, and then that jinn adds in his own spice, and and then from that jinn, and then the entire message changes. But there's a little bit of truth in it. So then the psychic, they receive that information, and then they're telling you, and then that one piece of information, which is true, gives you all the hope in the world that, oh wow, he found this out, and that means everything must be true. And we forget about all the other lies, and some of these guys are highly skilled and highly trained, they'll have a crowd of like 500 people, and then they'll look at the demographics that these are all, a certain group of people, and maybe one person out of this 500, one of their family members probably drowned, so he was saying, I'm getting visions, someone drowned, has anyone drowned, has anyone, and then one person will say, yeah, me, and then, they'll look at that person, and then they'll see like the letter S on their shirt, on their necklace, and then they'll say, what's his name with an S or something. Some of these guys are very highly trained. Don't get fooled by them, right? And don't visit them either. There's one right next door, right? Maybe we can bring him to the masjid one day. So those are some of the cool things the jinn can do. Some jinns are very powerful, as we mentioned in Surah As-Saba. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Sulaiman alayhi salam was given control over all the jinns. And it says, يَعْمَلُونَ لَهُ مَا يَشَاءُ مِن مَحَارِبْ وَتَمَاثِيلْ وَجِفَانٍ كَالْجَوَابِ وَالْقُدُورِ الرَّاسِيَاتِ. That some of these jinn were so powerful that they were able to build huge monuments, huge towers. And they were just able to build, such big structures with ease. And we know that Sulaiman alayhi salam, he used the jinn to make magnificent things. So they're very strong, they're very, very powerful. In general, jinn, if you compare the human beings and jinn, in general, jinn are stronger. In general, jinn are faster. In general, jinn live longer. But in general, human beings are much smarter than jinn. And as we know that, and as the Quran says, that intellect is much superior than raw power, raw strength. Some of the other powers that these jinn have is that they can go very deep under the ocean. The pressure of the ocean doesn't bother them. They're not worried about air. They can go really deep in the ocean. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in the Quran, that Sulaiman alayhi salam would utilize some of these jinns so that they go underwater and they collect these rubies and pearls and whatnot. But as we mentioned, that some jinn are very powerful. And one type of jinn that is very powerful is known as Ifrit. And Allah mentions this in the Quran, قَالَ إِفْرِيتٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ, that Sulaiman alayhi salam said, he said, who's going to bring me the throne of Saba? Right? So then this one jinn, Ifritun min al-jinn. Ifrit is not the jinn's name. Ifrit is the type of jinn. So this type of jinn stood up, and Ifrit is a very strong, powerful type of jinn, and they're rare types of jinns. They're not, they're not so prevalent, right? They're like the bodybuilder jinns, right, or the strongman jinns, right? So Ifrit is a type of jinn, He says, أَنَا أَتِيكَ بِهِ قَبْلَ أَن تَقُومَ مِن مَقَامِكَ. That this jinn was so powerful, he says, I will bring you the throne of Sheba even before you stand up from your spot. وَإِنِّي عَلَيْهِ لَقَوِيٌّ أَمِينٌ. And I am very powerful and trustworthy. Meaning, this jinn was so powerful that he was able to travel such a long distance, bring back such a heavy object in less than a split second. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there was another person in the throne of Sulaiman. He says, قَالَ الَّذِي عِنْدَهُ عِلْمٌ مِّنَ الْكِتَابِ أَنَا آتِيكَ بِهِ قَبْلَ أَن يَرْتَدَّ إِلَيْكَ طَرْفُكَ. That I possess the knowledge of the book and I can bring you the throne of Saba before you even blink your eye. قَبْلَ أَن يَرْتَدَّ إِلَيْكَ طَرْفُكَ. That before you can even like turn your face or blink your eye. So again, we learn from this that knowledge trumps strength. That knowledge is much more superior than the strength that jinn possess. So this brings us to our last discussion, that because knowledge is much more powerful than anything the jinn can have, what knowledge can we acquire to protect ourselves from the jinn? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us everything we need to protect ourselves from jinn. Firstly, what we have to understand is that angels, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all of us angels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed angels for everybody. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ra'd, لَهُ مُعَقِّبَاتٌ مِّن بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِ يَحْفَظُونَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. That there are angels that follow you, that are in front of you and behind you, يَحْفَظُونَهُ, and they protect you by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually has appointed angels for us to protect us from these jinn, number one. Right? So that's the first thing. You can be comforted to know that we have, these security guards, these angels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands them to protect us. Number one. Number two, we know that, there are some types of angels that stay with us all the time, right? And then other types of angels, there are different types of angels. There's angels that stay with us all the time, and there are special types of angels that are, the angels of mercy, and then there are angels that, protecting angels. So, it actually, the hadith actually says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما منكم من أحد إلا وقد وكل به قنينه من الجن وقنينه من الملائكة قالوا وإياك يا رسول الله. Sorry, this is not the one. It says, إن معكم من لا يفارقكم إلا عند الخلاء وعند الجماع فاستحيوهم وأكرموهم. That these angels, these special angels of mercy and these angels that are meant to protect us, they are with us all the time, except during certain situations, except when we're using the bathroom, and except when we're having, intimate relations with our spouses. So Rasulullah says, فَاسْتَحْيُوهُمْ وَأَكْرِمُوهُمْ. That, have a sense of shame and respect these angels. Meaning, because when we go to the bathroom, we are now, we expose our awra, we expose our private part. Likewise, during, intimate relations with our spouses, that's a time of privacy, and the angels give us that privacy. These special types of angels, they give us that privacy. So what we can learn from this is that if we want to be in a state of protection, then we should, not be, what's the name? Don't go to these dirty places. Don't spend too much time in the bathroom. Nowadays, with the phone, people spend like 2 hours in the bathroom, and you're like, what are you doing in there? Oh, I was checking my Facebook, right? So not in the bathroom, right? Try to be in the state of wudu as much as possible, right? Generally, this is not a problem, but as we mentioned, that if there are things that you feel as though they're disturbing you, then try your best to be in the state of wudu all the time. Reciting the Ayatul Kursi, as we read in the hadith, that the shaitan, he taught Abu Hurairah that recite Ayatul Kursi before you go to bed. Why? Because فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَزَالَ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَافِظٌ. That if you recite Ayatul Kursi, then for the entire night, there will be a special angel protecting you. Right? وَلَا يُقَرِّبُنَّكَ شَيْطَانٌ حَتَّى تَسْبَحْ. That, and shaitan cannot come close to you until the morning. So Ayatul Kursi is very powerful. Read it after each salah, read it before you go to bed. It's a very powerful dua from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The three quls, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. They're very powerful. Read them after Salatul Fajr and after during the evening after Salatul Maghrib. And if you need to, if you feel you need extra protection, then read them after each salah. Adhan is very powerful as well. If you feel that there's some sort of presence in your house, call out the adhan. Adhan is very powerful. Surah Al-Baqarah. We know that Ayatul Kursi is from Surah Al-Baqarah. The last ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah is very powerful, but in general, Surah Al-Baqarah itself is a very powerful deterrent for protecting us from jinn. And also just having your house, doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praying in your house, making your house alive with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, really offer a lot of protection. And really, this is how we protect ourselves from jinn. But as you know that jinn really don't bother us. And many of these, sometimes people hear these things and it's really just, a problem in your house or it's something in your imagination. So in concluding points, the things that we have to remember is that they're like any other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they have limited amount of power. They can't just, become something and harm us. They can't, just become like, they can't come in front of us and just, harm us. They're limited, and majority of the time they live in places far away from us. And there's sufficient amount of things that we can do. If we read these du'as, and there's many du'as from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من شر ما خلق بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. These types of du'as, if we read it in the morning and the evening, then really nothing's going to bother you, inshallah, you have nothing to worry about. And if in the situation that after you've read all these things, then you're taking your precautions, if you feel that something is bothering you, then you may want to contact, really, you have two options. Either there's something, there's some sort of, issue with you, you may want to contact a psychiatrist, or, here's the thing, sometimes we laugh at these things, but really it's very serious when people go through these psychiatric problems. If you see a person who's crippled, we're not going to laugh at that person. Likewise, when a person goes through these mental issues, it's a disorder, it's a handicap, So likewise, if we're not going to laugh at someone who's physically disabled, we shouldn't laugh at someone who's mentally disabled. That's a very possible reason that a person may be going through those issues. But if you can, you go to a psychiatrist or you take someone to the psychiatrist and they rule out that there's nothing wrong with you, then your second best option is that yes, a jinn may be bothering you. A jinn may have done something to you. And understand that only a few jinn, only very, very powerful jinn, and these jinn, they can't do it alone. They need the assistance of other human beings. For a jinn to possess you, they need assistance with another human being. This person has to collect your hair and all these things and black magic, and then they get to you, right? If you want to know a little bit more about jinns, then you can go tonight and watch the Exorcism of Emily Rose, right? That's a very scary movie. It's about a little girl who lives in the country, and she was possessed, and this was a real possession. This was not some mental disorder. She began speaking Latin, fluent Latin. She was never taught Latin. She was speaking different languages, just very different things. So there are real situations, but majority of the time, and majority of us, inshallah, we don't have to face those situations. So, the point of this tonight was to, just relieve some of this fear and this anxiety. So if you're ever alone in the masjid, or in the middle of the night if you have to use the bathroom, please go. Don't keep a bottle next to you, right? Go to the bathroom. If you're thirsty, go to the bathroom. inshallah nothing will harm you. And if you feel there's something there, read Ayatul Kursi, read Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, and then go out. Inshallah you'll be protected, there's nothing in your house. So inshallah, hopefully everyone found this beneficial, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant everyone correct understanding and reward for participating tonight. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
So you said that there are certain people who can communicate with the jinns. How do they do that?
That involves black magic. I don't know the exact procedure, but there are ways to get in touch with the jinn, and it doesn't always require black magic. Some people are able to communicate with good jinn, and some, like Rasulullah SAW was able to communicate with all jinn. But some people are able to, they do it certain ways. It really depends on the jinn, if they want to disclose themselves. So the brother's asking that, how do people communicate with jinn? It really matters to the jinn. If the jinn wishes to disclose himself to the person, then they can do so, and then that's how, but I'm not exactly aware of all the details, right? Yeah.
The concept of jinn is, to my knowledge, only with Muslims. Although, and you cited the Quran saying that Prophet Sulaiman utilized the jinn. Do, from your knowledge, Jewish theology mention that Prophet Sulaiman did utilize the jinn?
So regarding that, I actually spoke to a rabbi once about this, that do Jews believe in jinn? Now this rabbi, he lives in Cherry Hill, so generally the Jews that live in Cherry Hill, they're reformist, meaning modern Jews. They're not Orthodox. So I'm not sure about what the Orthodox Jews believe in, but the reformist Jews, the modern day Jews, what they don't believe in any concept of jinn. I don't think they believe in, I'm not sure about angels, but they don't believe in any concept of jinn.
Is it mentioned
in their scriptures? I'm not sure. In fact, I asked them that, do you believe in a akhirah, in a hereafter? And they said, it's our choice. If a person wants to believe in a hereafter, they can. If a person doesn't want to, they don't have to. But it has to be in an ethical way to believe in the hereafter.
Different sects.
Yeah.
Some Jews believe in the
Yeah, exactly. There's different sects of Jews.
I understand.
Yeah, but in the Torah, I'm not sure if it's mentioned.
Whether they believe in,
Yeah.
in jinn, whether it's cited in the Torah.
But a good point over there is that we don't believe in ghosts. Ghosts are, so to say, spirits of people. We don't believe in that. Once a person has passed away, they're gone. They can't come back. Jinn can take, sometimes they can show themselves as people who have passed away. A funny incident of a scholar, a very old scholar. He says that one incident that happened to him was that he went to a different town. This is like 700-800 years ago. He says, I went to a town, and then the people there, they were saying that we just saw you the other day. And then he's saying, what are you talking about? He's saying, yeah, we saw you the other day. And he said, that wasn't me. So, some jinn took his form. And so jinns can do that. They can take on the form of others, but we don't believe in ghosts that, people after they die, they come back to us. The concept of ghost, I believe it's a Christian concept. I'm not sure though. But yeah, as far as mentioned in the Jewish scriptures, I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah. Any other question? Yeah. Yeah. So there's male and female jinns. They have families. They have families. They have normal families just like us.
What kind of food they eat?
Actually, regarding their food, in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it says that after we eat, then the bones that are left, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates a type of nourishment for the jinn, and then they feed off that. So
In dumpster, the gyms are
I don't know if they go to the dumpster, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
See, the concept of somebody being possessed.
Yeah.
So now the jinn has taken the form of that person, and what happens to that person then if that's the case?
Possession is.
Example you gave for that girl.
Yeah.
So what exactly was going on? The jinn had taken the form of that girl?
No. Possession doesn't mean they take the form. Possession means they forcefully enter your body, and I'm assuming what they do is they take control over your mind or something like that, right? But the exact details, I'm unaware of it. Yeah.
He said that the concept of jinn only exists in Islam, but there's actually proof that it exists in pre-Saudi Arabia as well. So it's not only Islam.
Yeah, in all cultures, all people believe in some sort of supernatural, power. They believe in monsters. I think in Mexico they have this concept of this. They have all these different things like they believe in trolls, leprechauns, other things like chupacabras and whatnot. In South Africa, I've heard some crazy stories in South Africa, like these small people that go and invade your homes and stuff like that, right? So jinns can take these forms, right? And sometimes they do to scare people. But again, they're not, they won't really harm you, So in all cultures, all people have, some belief of these monsters or things. But for Muslims, we know that they're not monsters or they're not ghosts. They're just jinn, just trying to mess with human beings. Yeah.
During the month of Ramadan, the jinn and shaitan is being chained.
Yeah.
What is that content?
During the month of Ramadan, this is in the hadith, that during the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala locks and chains the shayateen. Yeah, so there's actually two interpretations of that. Some scholars say that only the very big shaitan are chained, but the smaller shaitan, the jinns that are not that bad, they're still free. And the second interpretation is that all the evil jinn are locked, but we still have to deal with ourselves, our nafs. But then after Ramadan, they're unchained.
Only in the Muslim community areas or for the other?
I guess I guess everywhere. But Allahu A'lam. Yeah.
How do you distinguish between what's a nafs and a jinn?
Ramadan is a good time. Ramadan, when the shayateen are locked up, then you can be, then whatever bad things we're habitual of, then that's really from our nafs and our habits, not to blame shaitan. So shaitan, his power of waswasa, of whispering, is they really don't have any power over us. They can only give us these, thoughts and suggestions, like do this, this is a good idea. And that's exactly what happened to Adam alayhis salam. That فَأَزَلَّهُمَا بِالْغُرُورِ, that shaitan deceived him, in the sense that shaitan gave waswasa to him and tricked him, and that's what happened. But physically they can't do anything. Generally speaking, they can't control you either, right? They only give suggestions and opinions, but at the end it's your choice whether you want to obey them or not. Any questions, comments, inshallah?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. What brother has another question?
You said we're talking about how the jinn traverse the several layers of the mind.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that they're not like Allah stopped that from actually happening.
What happened?
I read somewhere that Allah prevented that from happening after Muhammad. Is that like an opinion or is that wrong?
No. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevented it, meaning there's a barrier. Right, they can't go completely through it, but they can go near it. Yeah. So when they go near it, they can eavesdrop slightly. They can pick up on certain things, but they can't go completely past it. They can't transcend it.
In the concept of the comments, there is sphere.
Yeah, so Jazakallah khair, and inshallah, hopefully, all of us benefited. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.